I am just really thrilled to have Jesse Alexander here. Jesse just started working with NRAO, I want to say a month ago. It hasn't been long. He's done an amazing amount of work in a very short period of time. He's managed to meet a lot of people at NRAO, and I appreciate those who are here and those who are not, who have been very helpful to Jesse. Just a little bit of background. Jesse has a bachelor's and a master's in electrical engineering from Howard University, specializing in microwave systems. He's a senior member of IEEE. He's been a ham radio operator for more than 40 years. And he worked on Advanced Mobile Phone Service, AMPS, which was the predecessor to our current cellular services. So I'm just going to turn it over to Jesse now, and he's going to tell you about our exciting new ham radio project.
Hello, folks. Let's see, I hope everyone can hear me. I think so. Let's just get started. I'm going to start off with a little music, and then we'll keep going in the talk.
When the sun comes back, when the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd, for the old man is waiting for, carry you to freedom, follow the drinking gourd. Well, a riverbank is a mighty good road. Dead trees show you the way. Left foot, peg foot, traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is away.
Stop it there because there's some kind of technical thing here. And I'm going to talk about the song in the next slide. So the musician is singing about the drinking gourd, which is the Big Dipper, otherwise known as Ursula Major. And the drinking gourd has two pointer stars, which from what I understand are actually galaxies, and they are pointing to Polaris, which is the North Star. This is the star that I know my ancestors and some other ancestors, well, actually people all over the world used as a form of direction finding. And so the drinking gourd points to freedom. And this is the point to the slide and the point to the song is about basically placing BIPOC folks in history as astronomers, as people who actively use the sky and actively use stars and planets and other things to guide their lives and that kind of thing, our lives. So that's the whole point to the song and to this slide. So BIPOC folks are in wireless. I've been in wireless. And of course, the first form of wireless communications is music. And also, and as far as music goes, the first form of music, I think in many instances was a drum. And so what I'm showing here are some references from history of BIPOC folks involved in wireless communications. We have Libert Young, who is someone I found accidentally on the internet. We've got Navajo code talkers. We've got someone that's relatively new, Dr. Gladys West, who is one of the inventors of GPS. We've got W3LF, the first Black ham radio operator from 1926. And This is a picture of my friend Ken Greenhouse, who is now what we call in ham radiodom a silent key. He's no longer with us. Ken Greenhouse in this particular area in Prince George's County, Maryland, was involved in multiple activities, including Red Cross, Amateur Radio Emergency Service, Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, CERT, Boys and Girl Scouts, and and Skywarn. I can't forget Skywarn, and I'm probably missing a few. So Ken was involved in a lot of things, and I'm dedicating that slide to him. Now I'm going to play another video all the way through that well, let me play it and then we'll talk about it. Oops, let's go back. Okay, let's try again.
You won't believe it, but you can talk to someone in space.
Sam from Earth, calling space station. Can you hear me? This is Sam from Earth. Can you hear me?
If you want to talk to space, you need a really big antenna, multi-elemented and made of aluminum.
Calling the space station. Can you hear me? This is Sam from Earth, calling the space station. Can you hear me?
Sam from Earth. 聞こえますか？聞こえますよ。
こんにちは。こちらは
ジャパニーズスペースステーションです。もしもし、連絡してくれてありがとう。
Oops. Okay, so the thing I like about this particular video, first of all, it's a commercial. It's not necessarily what I like about it, but it's a commercial that is just from the looks of people, is probably from Southern Africa, maybe even South Africa. It sort of shows the excitement and I don't know, the excitement about ham radio and that kind of thing. This video is very popular online. Ham radio operators have been sharing it all over the place. If you go to YouTube, you can find it. It's probably got 1 million hits. And then there are comments below. This is great. I love it. And one of the things I like about this particular video is it centers an African child. It centers a brown person, which is interesting. And it's also interesting to see the reaction of people just in general to that. So that's what that's about. Now to the ham radio project. I'm not going to read everything here. But this is basically the project I am leading, and I'm having an absolute blast. We're getting to the meat of things. We're actually developing the curriculum as we go, and not as we go. We're actually developing the curriculum, and we're going to roll it out next year, probably on January 9th. And I'm just really excited about it. And you know, looking forward to filling up Supernova with all kinds of good content. The whole idea is to get young people, especially BIPOC and LGBTQ kids who are traditionally marginalized in the ham radio community, and probably to some extent in the radio astronomy community, to introduce them to the spectrum, introduce them to the natural resource. I see the spectrum as a natural resource, and I think it's important for us to be seen and heard on these platforms, and I'm really excited about this project because I think it's a good entree to ham radio and radio astronomy for young BIPOC students. And it should say it here, and I think, I don't know whether I left it off, but we're targeting young folks 18 to 20 for the program. All right, so I used to do sales. So I always have in a sales deck, you always have to have a what's in it for me slide. And so I'm listing some of the things that are important to that will be important to the BIPOC and LGBTQIA cohort that we're hoping to bring in. They get a license, and the one thing I didn't add here is they get they actually get a stipend. They get hands-on education. A lot of young people worldwide, in fact, outside of the country, the interest in ham radio as an emergency communications technique and system is actually gone off the charts. It's, you know, all over the place. And I could probably turn on the radio right now, and with the antenna pointed in the right direction, I could probably hear people working on Ian relief and also Puerto Rico relief. And if I've got a good enough range, I could probably hear people in Pakistan dealing with some of the floods. So emergency response is a big, important aspect to ham radio, and it's also happens to be something that young folks seem to be very interested in. The ham radio community is aging, and you know, and there's a need for new blood to keep going. And one of the main concerns about that is basically that when you think about it, we've got ham radio operators have a portions or segments of the spectrum that we can use as citizens. And that means non-commercial use for everything from telemetry to satellites to playing around with gear and seeing how far we can talk, or whether we can talk to space like Sam in the video. That's important. That's an important resource. It's something that's worth defending. And if this were a ham radio club or a group of hams like I was speaking to before, I'd say that the ham bands have been pretty quiet, and we need to occupy those bands. Otherwise, there'll be, you know, there are other services and other folks inventing things, and, you know, parts of the bands may end up being used for profit, and then we won't have access to it. As for the our community, the NRAO community, what we're hoping to do is create a pipeline of future researchers, technicians, craft, mechanics, the works, people who have what I call muscle memory knowledge of wireless technology. One of the greatest stories I've heard about muscle memory wireless technology was a friend of mine who worked at I think it was a girls' high school somewhere in the country. And she talked about how the young women would text. They would, you know, they're not supposed to text, but they would, you know, text under their desk. And if it wasn't going out, she said they would do this kind of stretch with the cell phone near the window, and you could hear blink as the text message went out. That is having a feel for how wireless works, knowing that you get more bars if you're higher and closer to the cell site. So that's what that's all about. And I've got a little article. I've got a URL to an article in the IEEE Spectrum that I think is pretty good on balance in terms of talking about the overall health and survival of ham radio, of the ham radio community. So that's the what's in it for slide. This is how we're building the curriculum from a people and resources. And this is the part of the, one of the parts of the slide where I'm going to say we need your help. If you're at all interested, we're hoping, we'd love to have you help out. We have needs for teachers as well as mentors to work with the students and that kind of thing. And we've got good mental health professionals. I'm thinking of Jennifer Bates and others who are going to be helping us out. But you know, we're building, and we're in construction. We're making this prototype, and so this slide, the point of the slide is just to show who's involved and possibly who we need. This basically shows the project timeline. We are in the design phase. And it shows the activities that are happening in the design phase. We're targeting, as I indicated before, we're going to be starting in January next, and we're going to have the pilot then. That's going to be 20 weeks of 10 young folks. We'll bring them all the way through to get their technician's license. We got some hands-on labs. I'm literally looking at some of them in my own lab space right now, and testing them out. And so then after we get through with the pilot, or wave one, I have a friend who used to work for IBM, and he says if you were working at IBM, you'd call it wave zero. But anyway, we won't get into that. But wave one, and then once we get them through that, the next wave will start, where we bring them through to get the general class ham radio license. And then, of course, we're going to have an evaluation, and then we're going to figure out what the next steps are. And that's pretty much our timeline. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about a hidden channel, sort of hidden channel in ham radio. And I'm going to sort of modernize a ham radio joke. So there are two hams texting each other. The first ham says, "I can barely hear you on the frequency that we agreed to be on, 80 meters. And the other ham says, oh, I see there's a problem with my antenna. Let me rotate it. And how about now? How's it working? And the other ham says, oh, it looks good. And do you want confirmation, a QSL card? I actually have a bunch of them here. I'll bring one down for the camera if I can. Yeah, here. This is an example of a QSL card. It's basically a confirmation. This QSL card is kind of precious to me because this is a supervisor that I worked with at Bell Labs. So anyway, that's what a QSL card is. So this is a kind of a joke in ham radio community, because the idea that you would use cell phones, right? You've got wireless equipment. Why are you using a cell phone to communicate? Well, use a hidden channel. Because, or you could call it a hidden channel. I would call it a logistics channel. In traditional ham work, you know, you actually have a channel where you're trying to work through problems with your equipment. And how does that, you know, something's wrong. How do we make it work so that you can communicate, right? If this were an emergency, instead of using, and the cell phones were down, ham radio operators would actually use a logistics channel, which could be on a different frequency or a different band, to say, hey, I'm not receiving you on the main channel. You need to make some adjustments. So, and it's kind of a joke to use the cellular network as the back channel or the hidden channel, because a lot of hams, when cellular started, which I have some involvement in, perceived cellular as a threat to ham radio operator. I'm actually thinking about writing an essay called "Now All of Us Are Ham Radio Operators." Right? Everybody has a cell phone. So, but anyway, it's kind of a joke, but like I said, in real world examples, in the real world, there is a separate logistics channel. In fact, if you were to listen during an emergency, you would probably hear the main emergency channel is very quiet with very brief transmissions, but the logistics channel would have lots of traffic, you know, and that kind of thing, usually during an emergency. And you can actually do this. You can test this yourself. You can go to the Hurricane Watch Network, hwn.org, and you can see when the next hurricane nets are. And then I think I have in here a URL when you can actually go to a web receiver, and you can actually listen to emergency traffic. if there aren't too many people using the web server at the time, you can listen to emergency traffic. I'm also giving so here I'm describing some real world examples. OMIC, which is the Black Amateur Radio organization, has a 24/7 net, or they call it a rag-chew net, which just means hams talking a lot on Zoom. For the young amateur radio group, Fishbowl, which I just discovered recently, YARC is actually using Discord as their quote hidden channel, or their back channel, where they talk about planning ham radio contests and events and all that kind of stuff. So we also want to have a presence on Reddit for that reason. I think a lot of young people use Reddit. I mean, actually, Discord. Reddit has a lot of, if you go to Reddit and search, you'll see a lot of technical information about ham radio stuff. You'll see people comparing equipment and talking about the best antennas and all that kind of good stuff. So that's really what this is all about. So what we want to do, and the point of this slide really is, what we want to do is create, and we've already created it, a Discord channel for the young people in this cohort to talk. We want it to be a place that has where they can talk technical stuff, and they can share ideas, and they can give us feedback about how well we're doing, or whether a particular lesson whether it made sense or it didn't, or seek help. We also want to create a channel on Discord, on our Discord space, where you can see the URL down at the bottom. Please join. We also have a channel that I think will be private, and that will be really only for people who, kids who are actually having problems on the air. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I'll tell the same story that I told at the Digital Communication Conference on January 6th. I was here, and I'd heard about the attack on the Capitol, and the first thing I do whenever I hear about some kind of emergency, whether it's weather or terrorists or what have you, I turn the ham radio on. And in this case, I actually used the web to monitor several people who were actually attacking the Capitol. Ham radio operators have certain radios that actually beacon GPS locations, and there were 2 or 3 hams that were arrogant enough to beacon their location as they attacked the Capitol. Now, why you want a ham radio license from the US government when you're attacking the US government is beyond my understanding, and I'm not going to get into that. But suffice it to say that when I turned on the radio and attempted to hear voice communications, didn't hear anything. I found out from a friend that the terrorists were using two local repeaters, one in Alexandria. I think they were both located in Alexandria, not too far from here. And they were basically making a bunch of unidentified illegal transmissions. And the reason I didn't hear the traffic was because the trustees, the people who manage those repeaters, shut them down, because they essentially were being used, for lack of a better term, for command and control to attack the nation's capital. Those people are still out there, and you can hear them on the air engaging in, how should I say, all kinds of nasty talk. And I expect, I already have had one woman ham contact me and tell me that she was basically harassed off the air. So I expect the unexpected, as they say in scouting. And I also want to make sure that we've got built-in procedures and processes to handle that if and when, I hope it never happens and they never get used, the young people in our program are harassed or attacked or something else, or they hear some really nasty talk. So that's what this is about. And now I'm going to go into a teachable moment, and this is actually from the Digital Communications Conference. When I first entered the space, I was challenged as to whether or not I was in the right place. And I joked about it. I said, well, I saw the antennas on cars. I assume this is the correct place, you know, and but after a little sort of back and forth, I would say polite back and forth, eventually someone came up and said, that's Jesse, he's giving the talk here today. You know, it's like, come on, you know. So the question is, you know, this is the teachable moment, right? What bodies, what does a ham radio operator look like? What does a guy or person with a master's degree in electrical engineering look like? What does someone who worked on memory systems for the control complex of the AMPS system look like? And on and on and on. So this is the kind of situation that I've had to deal with, and I expect our young folks to deal with, that they've already probably have to deal with. You know, ham radio is going to change. It has to change. This one program, you know, we're not going to boil the ocean, but what I hope to do is create to be part of that change. You know, that's what I hope that this program, that's part of my agenda, my personal agenda for this program. All right, so let's see, next. And again, what does a ham radio operator look like, right? Here we have an old commercial, and the expectation were that the women are going to be serving the ham, who is you know, got lots of equipment, and here we have a real world example. Brenda Muhammad, executive director of Focusing Our Resources for Community Enlightenment, a program. She's in upstate New York that she runs. She's a ham radio operator. I had a good conversation with her. They see ham radio as as part of their emergency community response, and that kind of thing. It was really good to hear from her post-COVID. So again, what does a ham radio look like? Ham radio operator look like? And the other part is, I put out a call. I was trying to find images of BIPOC woman holding a microphone and actually using ham radio. Brenda, I put out the call on the on the reflector for the OMIC organization, the Black Ham Radio organization. Brenda was the person who responded, and she said, here's a picture of me, you know. So it's really hard to find pictures of Black or Latinx women holding a microphone, or for that matter, at a computer and that kind of thing. So that's one of the things I hope this program can help change. So moving on, I indicated that emergency communications is one of the main draws for young hams, and I think we should mention that in some of our literature that we're putting out there. I'm just showing the various organizations that are involved in ham radio emergency response. At the upper left is Amateur Radio Emergency Service, and you can see some of the people that I work with in Prince George's County, Aries. Some of the folks there, Jim and Wanda Montgomery and Linwood Leach, and I think that is my friend Lee in the background, huddled over his HF equipment. There's CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. CERT is open hams and non-hams, but CERT does different things in different communities. In our community, they actually help the police in terms of traffic at emergency events or just straight up events. And so they have a need for longer range communication. So they often use ham radio. In my area, Amateur Radio Emergency Service and RACES, Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, are both the same organization. In different states and areas, they actually are separate. You could look at it that way. I self-activate as a amateur radio, as an ARES member, and the state of Maryland can call us out as a RACES member. The other organization that a lot of folks are involved in is Saturn, which is part of the Salvation Army. They're also heavily involved in EN relief and that kind of thing. And there's Mars, which assists the military when traditional communications fail. And one of my favorite organizations, and it's a great place for young folks, is Skywarn, which is a National Weather Service program. You don't necessarily have to be a ham. You can use a telephone, assuming it still works, but it sure helps if you're a ham. You can warn people about weather. You can actually, the whole reason for Skywarn is that basically, it's like citizen science in a way. You're able to provide information to the National Weather Service that frankly, they can't see with the weather satellites. So you report things like the girth of trees that have fallen, the size of hail, using money as a measure, like is the hail dime size or quarter size. If they're sudden, although they can see rotation with their radar, sometimes they can't see funnel clouds that just pop up. So you may, hopefully you report a funnel cloud and then run. So that's one of the things that happens. I don't know how many people have weather radio. You might go to the National Weather Service and look up their weather radio service. I know people who do boating and that kind of thing. Typically, I'm in Maryland, so a lot of boaters here have weather radio. If you hear a weather report and they say spotters have seen rotation or spotters have noticed lightning strikes, those spotters are people in Skywarn. That's basically what that's the whole point here. Moving on. I've got a little Morse code. One of the other things that seems to really attract young folks is Morse code, even though it's no longer needed for licensing. And I have this great video. I probably won't go through it all of it in the interest of time, but I thought it was really cool. He does the entire alphabet. So it goes on like that. I won't play the whole thing. You can watch it. I have a link tree at the end of this slide deck that you can use, and you can download all these cool videos. The point to this, there's a couple points to this video. Number one, that, like I said, young people are attracted to Morse code. Morse code is still used on ham radio, and in fact, there's been sort of a resurgence in its use. There's nothing that punches through interference and noise like Morse code. Absolutely nothing. Well, maybe FT8, but that's a whole nother technical conversation. But Morse code is still used, and we are going to have a segment for the young people. 1 week they're going to learn Morse code, and then that'll be part of the course. That's the plan. All right. Okay, so this is the part where I ask for help. We need subject matter experts to do some teaching. I'm particularly interested in folks who can talk about the electromagnetic spectrum. We've got some great people on the team that I think can be useful, but more are welcome. So please send me your contact information. We need mentors, in particular for young folks in this cohort. We're definitely going to have mentors and people to help them walk through this 10-week, eventually 20-week process. And then I've got a list of organizations that are potential partners. Well, of course, one of them is a partner, and that's the ARDC. They're one of our funders. But I've made contact with just about all the organizations here, and I'm looking forward to continuing communications with them. Hack and Hustle is something that many of you may not have heard of. It's an organization in Charlottesville that is involved in STEM and entrepreneurship. It's managed by a friend of mine from Howard, who we were also both at Bell Labs together, Monty Chambers. And so I wanted to make sure I mentioned his organization. HamSci is really cool, a citizen science program. The talk I gave was at the TAPER Digital Communications Conference. I'm really wanting to get in touch with folks at the Society of, at SARA, the Society of Amateur Radio Astronomers. I've got a card from one of the leaders, and I'm going to follow up with them. I'm also looking at IEEE and NSBE. I've been a member on and off NSBE for a while, and I just found out about RARA online, and I'm going to see about contacting them, and also about the SHPE organization too. That's new to me as well. We have contacts. I've already made contact with AMSAT and ARIS. Those representatives were also at the Digital Communications Conference, and they've already indicated that they would love to arrange as we say in ham radio, a QSO, or communications with hams on the space station. So that would be really exciting. And this is a little bit about me. I really appreciate everyone's time. And thanks for coming out. I'm going to switch quickly to Q&A. And I think there's a bunch of things here in the chat. Oh, good. Oh, I'm getting some good help feedback from folks. That's great. Oh, wow. Okay, there's a lot of good stuff here. I'll follow up with that. And thanks, Lindell, for putting that URL up there. I should say that you can scan from my digital card here. I think further back in the deck, I actually have, let's see, let's go down. Oh, here we go. All right, so here's some resources for further reading. Not all of them are related to ham radio. Actually, most of them aren't. I think you'll find some good stuff here, some good titles. I created a link tree that has all the books and titles that I would recommend for this, for further reading about this program. Questions? Okay, you can start. You can start by being a mentor. You can reach out to me at my NRAO address. It's J Alexand. It stops at the D. It's JALEXAND at NRAO There you go. Thank you, Lindell. Perfect. Yeah, yeah. So you can reach out to me there, and I'd be happy to follow up. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to do my goodbye here. Thank you.